Imagine waking up 6 months from now, and everything in your life feels completely different. Not because luck chose you, not because someone handed you a miracle, but because you decided to fight for your own transformation. 6 months is all it takes to rewrite your story. 6 months is enough to go from stuck, frustrated, and lost to unstoppable, focused, and fulfilled. The question is, will you let the next 6 months pass, or will you own them and change your life? The first key point is deciding before you begin. You might think you already know what you want, but the truth is, most of us drift through life pretending we're moving forward when in reality, we are just floating. Decision is the bridge between where you are and where you could be. It's the quiet, almost invisible moment when you say to yourself, enough is enough, and refuse to let circumstance write your story any longer. Without this decision, no strategy, no plan, no effort has the clarity to land where it matters. It is the soil from which every other action grows. To truly decide is to wrestle with your own excuses. It's to face the soft whispers in your mind that tell you maybe tomorrow, maybe later, maybe I'm not ready. These whispers are not your friends, they are the echo of fear trying to disguise itself as caution. You have to look at them squarely and say, I see you, but you will not guide me. Deciding is not a spark, it is a declaration, a promise to yourself that you will show up even when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or uncertain. It is a commitment to live with intention, not inertia. Making a decision before you begin is like setting the rudder of a ship before you sail. Without it, the waves of distraction, doubt, and other people's expectations will steer you in every direction except the one that matters. When you decide, you are choosing a destination, and suddenly every action, every choice, every sacrifice is filtered through the lens of that decision. You begin to see obstacles not as barriers, but as signals showing you exactly where your resolve is weak and where your focus needs sharpening. Decision is also intimately tied to identity. You cannot separate what you do from who you believe you are. If you decide to change, you are quietly, internally rewriting your own story. You are telling yourself, I am the type of person who doesn't settle. I am the type of person who shapes life instead of letting life shape me. It is not loud, it does not require applause, but it is profound because it shifts the entire inner architecture of your mind. Your thoughts, your emotions, even the energy you carry all align with this decision before a single external action is taken. There is a subtle courage in deciding, a courage that is invisible yet transformative. Most people wait for the perfect moment, the perfect clarity, or the perfect plan before committing. But decision does not wait for perfection. It is the first step into the unknown, the willingness to be uncomfortable, to risk failure, and to challenge the inertia of yesterday's habits. It's the difference between wishing your life would change and standing in front of yourself and saying, I will make it change. Every moment you hesitate is a moment where your potential quietly slips by, unnoticed, like water through your fingers. Decision before beginning also teaches you about ownership. When you truly decide, you no longer blame circumstances, other people, or luck. You claim responsibility for your life in the most profound way. There is power in this, not the loud, flashy kind, but a deep, grounded energy that fuels sustained effort. You begin to notice that once you decide, the universe seems to rearrange itself, not by magic, but because your perception and focus change. Opportunities that once passed unseen now appear, and you instinctively recognize the steps that will lead to transformation. Finally, deciding before you begin is a test of honesty with yourself. You have to be willing to confront the quiet corners of your life where comfort, fear, or laziness has taken root. This is not a dramatic moment, but a steady, deliberate confrontation with truth. You ask yourself, do I want this enough to change everything, even the parts of me that are familiar and safe but no longer serve me? And when you answer honestly, without excuses, you plant the first seed of real transformation. That seed may feel fragile at first, but nurtured with focus and courage, it will grow into a foundation strong enough to support everything else you dream of achieving. The second key point is mapping your battlefield. Most people wander through life carrying vague ideas, scattered intentions, and hopes that flutter like loose leaves in the wind. They act, but they don't see the full terrain ahead, and every step feels like a guess. Mapping your battlefield means taking the time to see the entire landscape of your life, the challenges, the distractions, the forces that pull you backward, and the opportunities waiting silently in plain sight. It is the act of turning chaos into clarity, of transforming randomness into a strategy that serves you. When you map your battlefield, you begin by defining your target with brutal honesty. Not the soft, polite version that sounds nice when you whisper it to yourself, but the precise, undeniable truth of what you truly want. It is not enough to say, "I want to be successful." You must name it. You must see it as a tangible point on the horizon, as real as the sunrise you watch in the morning. Only when your destination is clear can you orient yourself toward it, and every choice you make afterward gains purpose. Mapping is also about understanding the terrain of your own mind. The battlefield is not just external, it is inside you. Habits, fears, doubts, and old patterns form mountains and rivers that either slow you down or guide you. Recognizing them is not judgment, it is awareness. You chart these landscapes so you know where resistance will rise, where comfort zones will trap you, and where hidden strengths lie, waiting for you to step onto them. This awareness transforms uncertainty into preparation, hesitation into insight. It is in the details that mapping your battlefield becomes a force multiplier. Break your larger goal into the smallest actionable steps, the paths you will walk each day that carry you closer to the horizon. These steps may feel mundane, a conversation, a practice, a small sacrifice. Yet when arranged intentionally, they become the scaffolding of transformation. Every action is no longer random motion, but a deliberate maneuver, a movement that counts. You begin to see that progress is not magic, it is engineering, built patiently, step by step. Mapping your battlefield also requires anticipating obstacles, not as a way to discourage yourself, but to prepare with quiet confidence. Think of it as plotting the currents of a river before stepping in. You don't fight the water blindly. You learn where the rapids are, where the eddies might trap you, and where the smooth flow will carry you forward. Challenges are no longer surprises, they are signals, guides that tell you where to adjust your course, where to focus your strength, where to step lightly, and where to step firmly. Another layer of mapping is understanding the people and influences around you. Every person you interact with, every environment you inhabit, can either strengthen your momentum or drain your energy. Mapping your battlefield means recognizing these forces and deciding how to engage with them. Some battles require allies, some require distance. The clarity to see these relationships for what they are and to act accordingly is one of the most underrated skills in achieving meaningful success. Finally, mapping your battlefield transforms fear into purpose. When the terrain is unknown, hesitation thrives. When the path is invisible, anxiety grows. But when you take the time to map your life, your challenges, your opportunities, and your daily steps, you no longer wander blindly. Every decision carries weight. Every effort has direction. And in that clarity, there is freedom. The freedom to move with confidence, to act with intention, and to meet your obstacles with strategy rather than panic. In the mapped battlefield, you are not at the mercy of chance. You are the general of your own life, leading every step toward the outcome you have chosen. The third key point is building micro habits that multiply. Too often, we wait for the grand gesture, the sudden surge of motivation, or the perfect moment to act. And meanwhile, life drifts past us quietly, almost unnoticed. Transformation does not arrive in fireworks. It arrives in the gentle accumulation of small, deliberate actions repeated day after day. Micro habits are the whispers of progress that eventually grow into a roar. They are the quiet commitments you make to yourself when no one is watching, and over time, their impact is invisible yet unstoppable. Every micro habit begins with intention. It is a small, almost laughable act at first: reading 5 pages instead of 50, walking 10 minutes instead of an hour, speaking kindly to yourself once instead of 100 times. But the value is not in the size of the action, it is in the consistency. The mind and body respond to repetition, not intensity. Each time you honor a tiny commitment, you strengthen the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. The smallest choices, when repeated, accumulate like drops that fill a river. Micro habits also teach patience in a world obsessed with speed. We want results yesterday, but real growth moves at its own pace. There is a strange kind of satisfaction in discovering that progress is not always loud or immediate, that the path is slow, deliberate, and incremental. It is in this patience that you begin to recognize the hidden power of compounding. A single habit may feel meaningless in isolation, but when layered with others, it forms a lattice of change that carries you forward with momentum you did not know was possible. The beauty of micro habits is that they reclaim your power over the ordinary moments of life. So much of what determines your future is decided in these small windows: the 5 minutes you spend scrolling social media or meditating, the words you choose in conversation, the effort you give when no one notices. Each tiny act, chosen deliberately, becomes a statement of who you are. Your life does not pivot on a single heroic moment, it bends gradually under the weight of consistent, meaningful choices. Micro habits are also a shield against overwhelm. The mind rebels against huge, undefined goals, and the body resists sudden, drastic change. But small, manageable habits are approachable. They feel doable, and in doing them, you cultivate confidence. You prove to yourself that change is possible. Not someday, not when everything is perfect, but today, right now, in this small action. Confidence grows quietly, layer by layer, until it becomes a force that cannot be ignored. There is an invisible dialogue in every micro habit, a conversation between who you are today and who you hope to become. When you choose to act consistently, you are telling your subconscious mind, "I am reliable, I am capable, I honor my own commitments." The mind begins to rearrange itself around these messages. What once felt difficult starts to feel natural, and what once felt impossible begins to feel inevitable. This is the power of repetition. It rewires not just habits but belief, identity, and expectation. Finally, micro habits create freedom within structure. They are the scaffolding that supports larger ambitions without exhausting your energy. When practiced consistently, they produce results silently, without drama, without stress. And when the bigger challenges come, as they always do, the foundation built by these small habits carries you through. You are no longer relying on luck, chance, or bursts of willpower. You have created a rhythm, a flow, a quiet engine of growth that moves your life forward even when circumstances are against you. These tiny, persistent acts are not small at all. They are the quiet architects of transformation. The fourth key point is cutting the toxic weight. Every life carries invisible burdens, not always obvious at first glance. Small chains of habit, negative voices, draining relationships, unexamined fears. These weights accumulate quietly, like sediment on the bottom of a river, slowing your current, clouding your vision, making even small progress feel exhausting. To move freely, to step fully into your potential, you must learn to identify these burdens and let them go. It is not a one-time act, it is a process of noticing, naming, and releasing. Toxicity comes in many forms, and the first step is honesty with yourself. You may carry habits that numb you, conversations that sap your energy, attachments that bind you to fear or resentment. It is tempting to justify them, to say, "I need this," or "I can't let this go yet." But the truth is, they are not serving you. They are disguising themselves as comfort while quietly stealing your life. Cutting them is not cruel, it is compassionate. It is making space for the life you actually want, rather than the life you've been conditioned to accept. Cutting toxic weight also means choosing your environment with intention. Your surroundings shape your mind in ways you rarely notice. The people you spend hours with, the media you consume, the rhythms of your day, these are not neutral forces. They whisper constantly to your identity, influencing what you believe is possible. To shed toxicity is to recognize which of these forces lift you and which drag you down, and then to act decisively. The world will always offer distractions, but freedom comes when you stop letting the noise dictate your path. It requires courage because cutting toxic weight often feels like loss. You may feel fear, guilt, or doubt. Friends may feel abandoned. Habits may feel comforting. Routines may feel familiar. But here's the truth. Letting go is not a betrayal of yourself or others. It is an act of alignment. You are not rejecting people or experiences for the sake of cruelty. You are prioritizing the health of your own growth. And when you do this consistently, you will discover that clarity and energy are far more satisfying than any fleeting comfort you once held onto. Cutting weight is also about reclaiming your time. So much of what we tolerate in our lives quietly steals hours, days, even years from us. The excuses we tell ourselves, the half-hearted commitments, the endless debates in our minds, all of this adds invisible bulk to our lives. By intentionally letting go of what no longer serves you, you free not just your energy, but your ability to act decisively. Time becomes fluid rather than trapped, a tool to be wielded instead of a weight to endure. This process sharpens your intuition. When you consistently release what is toxic, you begin to see patterns with a clarity you never had before. You recognize the subtle ways your own mind resists growth. You notice early signals of distraction, complacency, or emotional drain, and you can act before they become obstacles. Cutting weight is not just physical or external, it is mental, emotional, and spiritual. It is learning to trust yourself enough to choose growth over comfort, courage over familiarity, and purpose over habit. Finally, cutting the toxic weight transforms how you relate to opportunity. When your mind is clear, your energy is available for creation, for risk, for connection, for courage. You notice doors that were always there but invisible under the clutter of distraction and resistance. The act of letting go is not subtraction, it is multiplication. Each release creates space for momentum, for growth, for life to flow into your world in ways you had never imagined. By cutting what weighs you down, you discover how light, agile, and unstoppable you truly can be. The fifth key point is learning relentlessly. Life does not pause for us to catch up, and the truth is, growth is rarely accidental. Knowledge waits quietly in books, in conversations, in experiences that seem ordinary until we look closely. To commit to learning relentlessly is to recognize that every moment carries a lesson, and every person we meet is a mirror reflecting what we still need to understand. It is a mindset that refuses complacency, that sees the world as an infinite classroom, and that treats curiosity not as a hobby, but as a necessity. Learning relentlessly begins with humility. The moment you think you already know enough, the moment your mind closes itself off to new ideas, you begin to shrink. There is always more to see, more to feel, more to understand. The world is vast, and your perspective is necessarily narrow. To admit that, to open yourself to being challenged, to be corrected, to be surprised, is the first step in taking control of your own evolution. It is in humility that the seed of real insight is planted. This relentless pursuit also requires attention to quality over quantity. Not all learning carries equal value. Random information, endless scrolling, or surface-level knowledge can make us feel busy but leave us empty. True learning is deliberate, choosing mentors, books, experiences, and more. Moments that stretch your understanding, that push you just beyond what feels comfortable. It is the difference between wandering aimlessly through a library and reading a single page that transforms the way you see the world. The depth matters more than the breadth, because depth creates transformation. not distraction. Learning relentlessly is also about integrating knowledge into action. Information alone does not change a life, it only seeds the possibility. True learning moves through your hands, your body, and your habits. Each insight must be tested, applied, and reflected upon. It is like tending a garden. Knowledge is the seed, but without watering, sunlight, and care, it cannot grow. The daily application, no matter how small, converts understanding into capability and eventually into transformation. It also teaches resilience. When you commit to learning relentlessly, failure becomes an instrument rather than a judgment. Every mistake, every misstep, every time you fall short becomes a lesson waiting to be absorbed. The fear of being wrong diminishes because you understand that each setback carries insight that accelerates growth. Knowledge softens the sting of error, not by protecting you from it, but by showing that every experience is part of a larger, unfolding pattern you can navigate. Learning relentlessly sharpens perception. When you approach life with the eyes of a student, you begin to notice subtleties that previously escaped you. The patterns in human behavior, the hidden causes behind your struggles, the nuances in choices that lead to success or stagnation. This clarity becomes a compass, allowing you to navigate complexity with confidence. It transforms chaos into signals and noise into lessons. You begin to see not just what is happening, but why it is happening, and how you can respond in ways that align with your goals. Finally, relentless learning cultivates a hunger for growth that never dies. Once you commit to it, curiosity becomes a muscle you exercise daily. The mind begins to crave challenge, insight, and understanding, and opportunities for growth start to appear naturally. You are no longer limited by what you already know or what you've been told is possible. Instead, you inhabit a space where every encounter, every experience, and every quiet moment carries the potential to teach you something profound, to stretch you, and to bring you closer to the person you are capable of becoming. The sixth key point is measuring, adjusting, and repeating. Progress is rarely a straight line, and yet most of us act as if it should be. We set goals, take a few steps, and when we stumble, or when results don't appear immediately, we panic or give up. Life does not reward perfection, it rewards awareness. Measuring is the act of seeing clearly where you are, not judging yourself, but gathering truth so that your next move can be deliberate. Without it, effort becomes noise, and energy is wasted on paths that don't lead anywhere meaningful. Measurement begins with honesty. You must track not just what you do, but how it aligns with your intentions. Small details matter. The hours spent, the focus applied, the consistency maintained. It is easy to assume that being busy equals being productive, but busy hands often hide a wandering mind. When you measure, you shine a light on the blind spots in your own life, revealing where you are drifting, where you are holding back, and where your strength is quietly compounding. Adjustment is the next natural step. Life rarely unfolds exactly as you expect. Obstacles appear, circumstances shift, and sometimes the strategy that seemed perfect in theory fails in practice. This is not failure, it is feedback. Adjusting is the skill of bending without breaking, of course correcting with purpose, and of understanding that success is iterative, not instantaneous. The person who adjusts effectively transforms setbacks into guideposts, learning from the world rather than resisting it. Repeating, the third part, is where transformation compounds. Measurement without repetition is observation. Adjustment without repetition is planning without action. It is the persistent cycle, act, observe, refine, repeat, that builds momentum. Think of it as rowing a boat upstream. Every stroke moves you forward, but without rhythm, without observing the current and correcting your course, the effort is wasted. Repetition anchors learning and action into habits, turning small improving NTs into irreversible momentum. This cycle also trains patience. The mind often craves immediate validation, instant results, or dramatic change. But real growth is a quiet, measured accumulation of choices. Each week, each month, each small adjustment layers upon the previous one. What feels invisible today will feel undeniable in 6 months. Measurement, adjustment, and repetition teach you to trust the process, to believe in the quiet work, and to recognize that the seeds you plant now may take weeks, even months to sprout. But they will sprout, and they will flourish if tended consistently. This approach also cultivates resilience. When you measure and adjust regularly, setbacks lose their power to shake you. Mistakes are no longer crises but data points. The fear of failure diminishes because you see every misstep as a necessary part of the journey. You learn to respond with curiosity instead of panic, with problem solving instead of blame, and with persistence instead of surrender. Life becomes less about avoiding difficulty and more about navigating it intelligently, using evidence from your own actions to guide every next step. Finally, measuring, adjusting, and repeating builds a deep sense of control and freedom. When you act blindly, life feels random, chaotic, and overwhelming. When you observe, correct, and practice consistently, you become the architect of your own journey. You discover that no circumstance is entirely outside your influence because you have cultivated the ability to respond intentionally. Each iteration, each reflection, each adjustment is a step toward mastery, not just of tasks or goals, but of yourself, your choices, and the life you are determined to create. The seventh key point is celebrating momentum, not perfection. So often we look at our lives and measure ourselves against some imagined standard of flawlessness, thinking that only when we reach that pinnacle can we feel pride or satisfaction. But perfection is a mirage. It moves as we chase it, always just beyond reach. Momentum, on the other hand, is real. It is the energy you build through consistent effort, through the small victories that no one sees, the quiet discipline you maintain when no one is applauding. Celebrating momentum is the practice of recognizing that progress itself is a form of success. Momentum begins with noticing. Life moves quickly, and without attention, our progress slips past unnoticed, buried beneath the daily noise. Every step forward, no matter how small, matters. Finishing a task you promised yourself, learning something new, resisting a temptation that would have pulled you backward. These are strokes of momentum. When you pause to acknowledge them, you reinforce the pattern. Your mind begins to associate effort with reward, not in some external applause, but in the quiet internal satisfaction of knowing you are moving in the right direction. Celebrating momentum also rewires your relationship with effort. Most people chase results and ignore the process, growing impatient or frustrated when outcomes take longer than expected. But momentum teaches a different lesson, that effort itself carries power, that repetition, consistency, and presence are forces that accumulate silently, invisibly shaping your reality. When you honor the process rather than fixating on the distant finish line, you feel confidence grow steadily, like water filling a reservoir, until one day it overflows into visible change. Momentum thrives on reflection. To celebrate it, you must look back at where you started, at the distance you've covered even when the road ahead still looks long. Too often we discount progress because it is incomplete, as if the partial journey has no value. But every step forward is a victory over the version of yourself who would have stayed stuck, fearful, or hesitant. Recognizing this strengthens belief and fuels the next action. Each moment of progress becomes a signal: I am capable, I am moving, I am alive in my own growth. It is also a shield against discouragement. Life will inevitably test you, and at times it will feel as if you are moving backward. Celebrating momentum reminds you that even small, forward-leaning actions compound, that setbacks are temporary interruptions in a larger current of movement. The energy built from consistent effort carries you through moments of doubt, giving you a reservoir of confidence to draw from when the path feels steep or the results slow to appear. Momentum becomes a companion that reassures you when fear whispers that you are not enough. Celebrating momentum cultivates joy in the ordinary. It shifts the focus from monumental milestones to the small, often overlooked acts of courage and discipline that shape life quietly over time. You begin to notice your own resilience, the choices you make in moments of fatigue, fear, or uncertainty. You start to understand that the accumulation of these tiny actions is what ultimately moves mountains, even when no one else can see it. The satisfaction of momentum is subtle yet deeply grounding, like the warmth of the sun on your face after a long climb. Finally, momentum becomes the engine of possibility. When you honor it, you no longer rely on bursts of inspiration or rare strokes of luck. You create a self-sustaining force that propels you forward, that transforms small, consistent actions into exponential growth. Each step forward builds belief, energy, and capacity, and soon the momentum itself attracts opportunities, clarity, and insight. Celebrating it reminds you that life does not need to be perfect to be extraordinary. It only needs you to keep moving, again and again, trusting that the forward motion itself will carry you to a life you once thought was impossible. And now, when you step back and look at all the pieces together, you realize something quietly profound. Transformation is never sudden, and it is never borrowed from someone else's story. It is a patient unfolding, built one choice, one habit, one reflection at a time. The decisions you make today, the clarity you bring to your path, the small, persistent actions you carry out without applause, they are what shape the person you are becoming. The work is steady, invisible, and often uncelebrated, yet it is more powerful than anything flashy or loud. You begin to understand that life responds to presence and attention. When you notice your own patterns, release what holds you back, learn without expectation, adjust with care, and honor the movement of your own growth, you create a life that is coherent, alive, and yours. The noise around you, the opinions, the distractions, they fade in comparison to the quiet authority of a mind aligned with its own purpose. The power lies not in forcing change, but in trusting that small, intentional steps, repeated faithfully, accumulate into something unstoppable. There is a calm strength in knowing that transformation is not about perfection. It is about fidelity to yourself, to your growth, to the path you have mapped out. Every choice, even the imperfect ones, becomes a conversation with your future self. You are building a rhythm, a flow, a momentum that the world cannot take from you, no matter what storms arrive. That rhythm grows steadier with each day, and with it comes clarity, focus, and a quiet confidence that feels like breathing deeply for the first time in years. And in that quiet, you begin to feel the truth. Life does not demand you to be extraordinary all at once. It only asks that you move, that you notice, that you nurture your own potential and let it grow. The work is yours, and it is enough. The transformation is not a finish line, it is the becoming. You are learning to walk with yourself, to act with intention, and to live with awareness, and that is where real power lies. So carry this with you as a constant undercurrent, 6 months, a year, a lifetime. It is all measured in the small, deliberate steps, in the momentum that grows silently when no one is watching. What seems incremental now will, over time, reveal itself as profound. You are shaping not just outcomes, but the very fabric of your character, your resilience, and your vision for what your life can be. And finally, in this moment of reflection, there is no rush, no pressure, only understanding. You are capable of more than you realize, not because someone told you so, but because the evidence lies in your own choices, your own persistence, and your own willingness to show up again and again for yourself. There is a quiet dignity in this process, a steady strength that does not need to shout to be recognized, and a clarity that illuminates your path in ways you will only fully see when you pause long enough to notice it. This is the life you are building, not by luck, not by chance, but by your own hands, your own mind, your own steady, unwavering attention. And as you step forward, you carry with you the certainty that growth is happening. Even when it is quiet, even when it is slow, and even when it is unseen, you are becoming quietly and powerfully exactly the person you were meant to be.